What happens if you've got no insurance and you're involved in a car wreck that is not your fault? We're going to dive into that question here today. The good news in all of it is you're not totally out of luck. It is not a perfect scenario for you, but oftentimes what is, right? You're not out of luck. You still have a claim, and maybe a very, very good one. So watch the rest of this video so you can understand how this happens when you don't have insurance on your side. And stick to the end, because I'm going to give you advice on what you need to do to better protect yourself and your family to not have this scenario happen again if, God forbid, one of you is in a serious car accident. Before we get into the answer, let me introduce myself. My name is Ted Spalding. I'm an Atlanta personal injury trial lawyer representing clients here in Georgia and throughout the country for the past 20 years. I am here not to sell my services in any way, but to give my advice, impart my knowledge that I've learned over 20 years of representing folks for two reasons. One, to help you if you already have an attorney or are thinking about hiring one, where you can be a better client. A better informed personal injury client is a better client. You need to know what's going on. And number two, if you're going to handle your claim on your own, to answer questions like this, I've got a bunch of other videos on this channel on all various topics. And of course, you can always reach out to me with any questions as well. Happy to do what I can to help so you can handle that claim better on your own. So let's dive into this question. So you're not totally out of luck. Yes, it's not perfect. Why? Because what I tell people is 99% of the time, you are playing within the ball field of how much insurance coverage there is. Why? Because that percentage of the time, there's going to be no point in going after the at-fault party for their personal assets. It is way too hard. People can file bankruptcy way too easily to avoid owing you. Things like their homes, if there's homestead exemptions, things like that, you can't put a lien on their home for a judgment. It's really, really hard. So most of the time, it's all about how much insurance coverage. And what we want is that ball field to be as big as possible. We want there to be, in every one of our cases, to be more insurance than you ever would have to touch. Now, that is extremely rare, unfortunately, especially here in Georgia, where the limits are $25,000. That's better than a lot of states out there. You might be in a state that's even worse. Florida's down to 15 or 10 last I looked. There's some other states that are around 10 grand. That's not enough coverage. So you got to have layers of coverage on your side that would cover even when you're not at fault. Now, you don't have that scenario in this one. So again, not perfect. But it all becomes what insurance coverage does the at-fault party have, and making sure we've looked everywhere. There's typically two layers of coverage that someone can have. It's their auto policy or policies if they have multiple and they stack, and there's all kinds of issues with that you need to know for another video. And number two, do they have what's called an umbrella policy? Separate policy that covers like an umbrella that person for anything they do harming someone else, including an auto wreck. So even more important in these scenarios, that you're looking under every rock to make sure you've got all available liability insurance policies at play, because you don't have any that will kick in on top of that. So that is the big issue in this scenario. Again, depending on what state you're in, you may be running into a situation where your claim is worth a lot more than the insurance coverage, because you may be talking one policy. And again, it could be 25 grand, could be 15 in certain states, 10. So you got to find out and know. Now, you may get lucky, and if it's a commercial vehicle, it may be $1 million of coverage. So we're talking more along those lines of you've got plenty of coverage. Make sure you can get all the treatment you need. Now, what you need to know as well is this makes you vulnerable to both the personal injury part of your claim or claims and your property damage. So it applies to property damage as well. If you don't have property damage coverage, you might be in a scenario where there's not enough property damage to cover the value of your vehicle. Rare, but can happen. Again, in Georgia, you would have, nowadays you can't even get a 4-door truck for less than $45,000 new. Most of them, the higher end ones, are 80, 90 grand. You total one of those in a wreck like this, and they only have $25,000 of property damage coverage, and you don't have any insurance at all, you're in trouble, because you're only going to be able to get 25 grand to pay that $85,000 vehicle. And God forbid you got a loan on it, you're not going to see any of that money. All that money is going to go to the loan, and you're still going to owe the remainder. So this is why it's not the best scenario in the world. It's not the worst in the world either, where there's no insurance on either side, and that does happen. It's rare, but from time to time, absolutely no coverage from anyone, and you're out of luck completely. So it's not that bad, but it's not as good as having what's called coverage, and I got videos on coverage, uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. So in this scenario, it's where at fault does not have enough insurance to cover your claim fully. Think that property damage claim. You want to have that. Now, the worst scenario would be you're not at fault, you have no What if the at fault party does not have any insurance? Then you're in that horrible scenario where there's no insurance on any side. Property damage, zero. Personal injury, zero. Because again, you can go sue them, but it's unlikely that it would be a valuable source to get compensation for your losses. That's the horrible, horrible situation. So hopefully that's not the case. It's rare, but there are people out there like yourself, if you're watching this video, want to know the answer, that don't have insurance at all. Now, I'm not going to cover the issues that you probably got a citation, right, for not having insurance. That's a violation, certainly here in Georgia and probably every other state in the country. That is for a criminal lawyer if you want to fight that. If you didn't really honestly have insurance, there's nothing to fight. Pay that ticket, move on. If you do have insurance, obviously show them proof. You'll be fine. They'll drop the ticket. Now, the valuable part here in this video, beyond what I've just told you, is how do you protect yourself going forward? Please, 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 if you're watching to this point in the video, get insurance coverage, uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. And you want to get what's called add-on. There's two different types. I got another video that goes through all of this to explain it. There are two different types of coverage. The best is add-on because it adds right on top of whatever at fault has. So again, thinking of that scenario, $95,000 vehicle, 2 months old, gets in a wreck, totaled. So let's say it's worth 90. They've got 25 in coverage. There's your 25,000 to pay toward the 90. Now you're owed the remainder. That if you have add-on insurance, your property damage will add on top of that 25 up to its limit. So what I always tell people is at a bare minimum, get $100,000 of add-on Max it out if you can afford it. And you should be able to afford it, quite frankly. Don't go to Starbucks, those other things for a while. You can pay the premium for coverage. I'm telling you, it's not as expensive as liability coverage, but it's there to protect you and your family, especially in the personal injury side. Max it out, 250, 500,000 coverage, add on. Again, what if you're in a scenario where I've got one right now where the DUI driver hit my client, drunk driver, almost kills her. She is now needing a guardian and a conservator. She's 20-something years old. She cannot function on her own mentally, physically for the rest of her life. $1.9 million in medical costs. Guess what? $25,000 worth of coverage by the at-fault party. They did have only 25. It was add-on. So they'll be able to recover $50,000 total for that massive personal injury claim. Millions of dollars to make this plaintiff whole. Never going to have it. If they had $250,000 in $500,000 in that was add-on, that would add on top of the $25,000 from liability. And now we're still a horrible situation, but it's a big difference between $50,000 total recovery and $275,000 or $525,000 in recouped cost and damages. So it can sway in a big way, and it's the only way to ensure you protect yourself, because otherwise you're playing Russian roulette with who hits you, do they have insurance at all, and do they have just state minimum, or do they have a lot of coverage? And you don't want to run that gamble. So protect yourself in the future. I hope you heed that advice and warning. I hope this video has helped you with your situation, learn a little bit more on how insurance works so you can be a more informed personal injury claimant, and watch some of my other videos on my many different topics to help you out through any of your other questions. And as always, thank you for watching this video.